I was locked down back in 2020, just like everybody else. I got fed up. I got pissed off eventually because in California, we have a large Democratic supermajority here that's being funded by all these lobby groups that were just trying to keep the schools closed. There was no data to even back that. I remember the CDC coming out in March of 2021 to say that it was safe to reopen the schools. And here in California, you had people that were very reluctant to reopen the schools. There's no doubt that the lockdown, not being able to go into the sun, we were like that for a year and a half with these authoritarian politicians dictating to restaurants and bars and even schools that they couldn't open until a certain point in time. And of course, that's going to reduce the life expectancy of children because they were missing out on the social interaction. And that's something that I was missing out on. Therefore, I was angry enough at the swarm to fight them. Dr.SHIVA, everybody's forgetting about what happened during the pandemic. Everyone sort of has this amnesia now. They don't even remember what happened back in 2021, 2022, all these coercive measures. And I'm still angry at these people, which is why I'm still going to keep up the fight.
So Max, what's going on right now is massive theater. It's theatrics. Trump's mugshot, some brown noser, I call him Vivek the Snake, right? Or Biden acting like he's demented or he is demented. All this stuff is pure theater. And it's to distract people from realizing that the only way out of this is us building a bottoms-up movement and destroying the swarm. Thomas Massey, if you really look at him, he didn't really say a lot about fundamental things in 2020. And even people like Rand Paul, they waited almost a year and a half to say fire Fauci. In fact, we ran the Fire Fauci campaign in early 2020. A year and a half later, Rand Paul started using that to raise money. So all these guys are opportunists. So I think it's very important as we review 2020 to look at what these individuals did. What were they doing in March of 2020? To me, March of 2020 is a critical point. But before we go there, can you just take about a couple minutes and tell us who you are, your background, how old you are, where you're from, where you live, just very basic, whatever you want to share personally.
Yeah, so I'm 18. I live in the state of California. I was in high school when everything shut down, so I was just a regular school kid. Currently, I'm in college. I'm in about my third year right now. I'll do all these things on the side. I work a job just like a lot of other people who are going. I actually cook and I serve at a restaurant. I'm sort of like a utility guy there. I used to referee soccer, and then I used to also be a camp counselor, but obviously when things got shut down, that all completely changed. So I'm just a regular, everyday person, and I'm obviously fighting back because I'm sick and tired of the nonsense. And as you said, it's all theatrics. Fauci should have been fired from the very beginning, absolutely. And now you have this narrative where people are backing Trump and backing these people and saying, well, they had to listen to Dr. Fauci. They were forced to listen to the establishment. They had no other choice. They had to ram this vaccine through. And I told people that wore masks during this period that if you keep wearing the mask, there's going to be a vaccine mandate. And I was obviously very concerned about that. And lo and behold, people scoffed at me. They thought I was funny. But this actually is something that happened. We had the vaccine mandate. People were shocked, but they really shouldn't have been. They give them an inch, they take a mile.
So let's talk about in the context of the swarm. You probably saw that swarm video, which probably got about 30, 40 million views. And it happened in spite of all the shadow banning. But if you saw the circus that the establishment or the swarm did call these quote unquote debates, they weren't really much of a debate. They were rather shoving fake leaders, fake anti-establishment people down people's throats. Going back to 2020, this is a letter that I wrote to Trump. This was right in the heat of battle. I wrote to Trump. It's important to understand this was written in March 23rd of 2020. And it was hand delivered to Trump by his former ex-wife, Marla Maples. And the letter basically said immune and economic health for America. It was a very short letter, but it basically told Trump, look, I have a solution to restoring the immune and economic health for the people of this country. And frankly, should not be shutting down the country, which by the way, led to $16 trillion worth of loss. And the first thing we talked about is Fauci. And we said what Fauci is doing is going to destroy our citizens' immune health, which is right here, as well as the nation's economic health. So I was intersecting two systems, the immune system and the economic system. And I said, there's no need to shut down our entire country. And if you go look back in March of 2020, Booby effing Kennedy was promoting lockdowns. Not one person on that debate stage yesterday, including Ron DeSantis, waited until a year and a half to oppose lockdowns. And then the other brown noser, the big pharma brown noser, they had to go find this Indian guy to try to take away the spotlight that myself and the movement had. But he was promoting mask mandates, promoting vaccine mandates. His company was actually creating the registry for tracking all of us. And in fact, a lot of people didn't accept it because it violated all sorts of privacy rules. It's important to understand what real people bottoms up were doing, like myself and our movement. And then here, I give Trump all the details of why this is dumb to do any of this, the scientific background, my credentials. And then we went into gross detail on this, saying that it's not giving him a little bit of evidence saying virus doesn't kill you, but it's a dysfunctional immune system that kills you. When you have a weakened immune system, your body overreacts, right? So the coronavirus goes to your lung epithelial tissue, Ebola goes to your endothelial tissue. So this notion the virus eats you away is nonsense. It is your own body's weakened immune system, which doesn't know how to properly react. But anyway, we told Trump, look, organize the community into 4 different people. The people really need help. Obviously, they should be quarantined, if that. And we gave actually a protocol of vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C, iodine, quercetin, zinc. And that's the letter that was sent to Trump in March 23rd, 2020. And it's very important because I know Trump got this because his White House called me back, but he didn't do anything because he was brought in. Let's be all very clear here. He was brought in. It's like Obama was brought in to save the big banks. Trump was brought in to save big pharma. And this other brown-nosing fool that they have running around, he's also a big pharma guy. He created companies which have drugs that actually do not work. Knowingly, they don't work. He put companies into public companies, flip them. And that's why he's getting so much visibility. And the guy I'm talking about is Vivek the Snake. He is a pharma frontman, big pharma frontman. And that's what Trump was. So that's what people need to get very clear. To your point, Max, the lockdowns were fundamentally done against everyday working people. You work, I work. They weren't done against the elites.
No, absolutely not. How could they have been done against the elites? And as you said, you have to look at these people's track records. I mean, Bobby actually, I don't know if you noticed, there's a video where he admits that he has fully immunized his children against all these other vaccines. So to paint this narrative that because he's suddenly...
You mean booby.
Either way, he doesn't have a good record, right? I mean, he literally has been sitting on a golden, I would argue, toilet seat his entire life because of his family legacy, where they come from. They're an elitist family. They've been bowing down and serving the elites for a very long time. And he's not coming to save us.
Max, who are you talking about? Just to be clear, talking about Booby effing
Bobby,
Kennedy.
yeah, Booby Kennedy. Yeah, that he had immunized his children against every other vaccination. And all of a sudden, now that he's come out against the COVID one, and I think it took him a while, right? Did not. And even with that, it's like people are painting this narrative that, oh, he's now this anti-vaccine conspiracy theorist trying to shine in a good light before the conspiracy theorists. You know what I mean? And then the same thing with Trump, even though Trump actually received, I think it was like 1.3, almost $1.4 million from Pfizer before his inauguration. So he was already selling out to the pharma lobby before he even started his administration. So it's not like 2020 was something new. He was already getting lobbied by pharma.
Yeah, Max, I think you hit up on a good thing here. And it's something that we're educating people on. They think they're so smart. They actually have enough data just tracking how people are thinking. They're opportunists. So if people are being anti-establishment and people are liking conspiracy theorists, then they mouth those words, right? So this doofus, the brown noser, which is what he should be called, Vivek the Snake, 5 months ago, he was promoting the climate change narrative. And now at the debate, he's saying, oh, climate change is a hoax. You say these guys literally are opportunist chameleons, and people need to get their head out of their ass big time. Because if you are looking at all of this and you are actually wanting to be abused by these people, that's what it is. It's a recurrent policy of every 2 to 4 years, they abuse people.
And so they did this with COVID. The COVID experiment, it worked great, and people forgot about all the hell they were dragged through over the last 3 years. They could do the same with these climate lockdowns.
Yes, if you look at Elon Musk, right? Elon Musk, one of his heroes is Greta Thunberg. Tesla would be absolutely worth zero. He became profitable because Tesla got $1.5 billion in government carbon credits from California. And when he got that, they went to their bottom line and the company became worth $600 billion. And if you notice right now, there's a very interesting cabal. There's 3 types of media right now. There's the old legacy media, the Fox News, CNN, etc. And they've started dying off. They'll be like radio. They'll still be there. But then there's a new cabal coming of the Joe Rogans, the fucker Carlsons, the Elon Musks, right? And then the Jordan Peterson numbskulls. I like Nassim Taleb calls him a fucking idiot, which is what he is. Or the other idiot, Russell Brand. So you have all these people who are really the neo-establishment cabal. And they just act like they're anti-establishment, right? So they'll say, oh my God. But none of those people said anything in 2020. None of them, they were all pro-vaccine or quiet in the heat of the battle in March of 2020. They're the neo-cabal. And if you look at it, all of them promote Bobby effing Kennedy. All of them promote Vivek the Snake. All of them promote Trump. So you have this new cabal coming in. They act like they're anti-establishment. And many of them follow me. But the problem I think they have, Max, is you see in 2020, we got our message out to close to 500 million people. It was my lawsuit that discovered the backward portal into Twitter. We're the ones who came out first exposing Fauci. So we have tremendous amount of trust and credibility among, I would say about 500 million people when you look at the volume of individual views. But that's why we became very, very dangerous. And they had to throw us off Twitter and they had to find replacements. It literally went hunting for people who would mouth our same words. And that's what the last 2 years was about. And now they went and found a brown noser, South Indian guy to do that, right? VA-SHIVA, VIVEK. This is not just accidental. It's actually a psychological operation because they knew this brown face was getting a lot of views and a lot of credibility. So they had to go find another brown face. And they do this in a very, very CIA way. I mean, Tucker Carlson, Glenn Greenwald, all these guys are front faces of essentially the intelligence community. They just say enough to make people think they're fighting. But at the end of the day, the fact fact that they make me invisible, which is becoming so apparent, is actually backfiring on them. So it's a very, very important situation, because in 2023, all of these people are saying, wait a minute, Dr. Shiva is the one who did that. Hey, why aren't you covering him? Hey, Dr. Shiva did that. Hey, Rogan, why aren't you covering him? Hey, Dr. Shiva did that. Why is this brown noser coming out of nowhere and just mimicking everything he's saying? So what's going on? So I think that's a very good development.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dr. Shiva. They only say enough to make people believe that they're all about truth. And in fact, a lot of these things that they say are only half-truths at best. You have those conspiracy theorists, and I happen to be one of them, who believe that Operation Mockingbird was not just some experiment performed by the government way back in the day, and that now there's really no use for it. I think it's been implemented in the media. The media is owned, controlled by the CIA, and obviously that's why they're all regurgitating the same talking points. There was this clip that I saw one day of all this array of local news networks talking about people being a threat to democracy, or so-and-so being a threat to democracy, and they were all regurgitating the same exact talking points.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
And it's like you said, the elites will do what they need to prop themselves up and their own products. The politicians, the media companies, the Fed Reserve, the central banks, the CEOs, that they're all tied together into this one big swarm. Take, for example, my governor, Gavin Newsom, who signed an executive order making it so that gas cars can't be sold past 2035. Who do you think that's helping? That's helping Elon Musk, obviously. Or the EU, same thing. The EU passing down policy to their nations saying you cannot buy or sell gas cars past 2035. They have to be all electric. That is helping people like Elon Musk. And so they are self-serving. That's what they are. They're not about us. They're about helping themselves, which is how through the lockdowns, they shut us down. They made us go to their big corporations as they deemed small business as non-essential. And there was just this massive wealth gain just amongst themselves. Trillions and trillions of dollars.
Yeah, 600 billionaires during the lockdowns increased their wealth by $2.3 trillion. Trump printed $8 trillion. And most of that went to his friends on Wall Street. Basically, all that cash drove the equity markets, which should have failed, but they literally created that V thing, right? And that's what one of the things is about. Right before I was put back on Twitter, I wrote this article called Elon Musk equals censorship, a surveillance of falsehood leading you to slavery, how we win back freedom. And you may remember this was what we discovered back in 2020, the entire government infrastructure of how this is a backdoor portal funded by Pierre Omidyar, Murdoch's, and Zuckerberg, which allows government here to launder censorship through these nonprofit agencies. That's how I was thrown off Twitter. I discovered all the playbooks. This is in 2020, man. And all of these playbooks lay out step by step how you would surveil and blacklist U.S. citizens, which was what was used against me. And one of the important things, and people can go to Winback to do that, but one of the important things is this was done in 2020. Carlson concealed our lawsuit, even though I can bring you up the letters we wrote to him and everything. But the interesting thing is 3 years later, they suddenly do the Twitter files, right? Oh my God, isn't this amazing? The DHS is doing this. Now, what's interesting, when I saw that, what I realized was this is sort of the intelligence agency technique they did. I had discovered the entire iceberg, which was the whole government surveillance system right here. It's in our lawsuit. It was out there. We got it out to 500 million people. So this is the thing. They actually concealed the whole truth, you say?
Yep.
And then in 2022, The Intercept, which is another government front end acting like they're fighting for us, plagiarized my lawsuit. And then they misattributed it back to The Intercept. And then they put it out there, but a very small version of it. DHS, which is only, if you look at this diagram, DHS is one little piece, which is part of this. They said, oh my God, the DHS, the government is involved in Twitter. Well, we'd already exposed this. So they put a little bit out, a half truth, and then Tucker Carlson amplified that news. And people are led into believing that they got the truth, and then they move along. The problem that they have here, Max, is that we got this news out and people remember we got it out and our movement got it out. If you want to think about it simply, there's truth and then there's action. They're fine if people tell a half truth and don't do any action. What happens is a lot of people think everything's on social media. In the old days, in the 1920s, and even during Nazi times, people realized that power was just a little printed piece of paper. And you can get these out to everyone. So I recommend everyone go to shivaforpresident.com, go to the download section, download this flyer, hand it out to as many people as you can. We have to go offline. It's a very powerful way to get the message out. There's a lot of young people we have coming in all over the world. You know, ours is a global movement. So someone like you can really be a great leader in it. Let's go shatter the swarm. Okay.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
shivaforpresident.com.